Everybody, let's talk about first year. The first year. Here we go. So, you have all these new people in your life. You have the school culture to get used to, which I'm going to consider that first bullet. Both culture and they're talking more about shock of the familiar, being that you've already been a student. Um, there's an interesting factor that I found teaching high school is I had so many memories of high school, my first year of teaching high school, just being in the environment again. And it's not like you slip into being a high school kid again. I don't want to say that, but it does make you very nostalgic. And you want your students to have a great high school experience, like hopefully you had, if you did. Whether it's that you had great friends from high school, or you did a lot of fun things, or um, I don't know, you had a really great high school sweetheart. Any of those things that you really treasured about your high school, you might find that you want them to have, and the same with any grade I think that you teach. And so that's sort of overwhelming, and it can bring up a lot of emotions because of the nostalgia factor. Um, Administrators being a mixed bag. I was used to working where I had a direct boss in a private enterprise, right? Who was I always worked pretty much right under the owner, and so yeah, administrators were different. It's this whole like, oh, let's learn together, let's talk about things, let's reflect, and that was very different from my first 10 years of working, where it was you need to bring in 20 grand in scholarship, and sponsorships for the next event, and you need to do it in 2 weeks. So go. Um, the other teachers, you had wow, the oh, the other teachers. They are fantastic, or they are so cutthroat and the knife in the back, it's unbelievable. the politics of teaching is phenomenal, and you'll either get in the middle of it, or hopefully you won't the first year. You'll just sit back and let everybody and just learn all the players and learn how everything works and get some backstory. Um, you'll either be engaged in it and be trying to either stop it or contain it or facilitate it, or you may get to the point where you just say, you know what, my life is in my classroom, and I go to the break room at lunch once a week so that I remain in contact with my coworkers. But primarily, my job is to teach, and my students are my focus. And quite often, sometimes I prefer their company, so I just going to stay in my room a little bit, and you sort of create your focus in your room. And that is the point I got to by year 3 was the drama. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I didn't. I focused on my instruction and my students, and I maintained relationships, but I didn't try to really change things because it was too taxing. Friends are fiends. The students are not your friends. Students are not your friends. Students are not your friends. And that's an awful thing to say, because here I am talking to my students, and it's very hard in community college environment not to want to have a friendship with some of my students, because they are my age, and we have a lot in common, and all of that. So you don't have that when you teach K through 12, but you still will find students you get along with really well. And you always have to remember they are not your friends. They're almost like your employees, if that helps any of you who've had management positions. And it's very important to always keep that professional boundary. Parents are also not your friends. That sounds awful. I feel so jaded, but boy, did I get burned by parents the first couple years. I mean, they would just hang me out to dry over all these. I was a cheerleading coach, and the drama with the cheerleading parents was phenomenal until I got things sort of organized, and they realized that I had legitimate, logical reasons for making people come to practice on time and making people look presentable in their cheerleading uniforms and all of that. The biggest way that I was able to create allies within my parents was to communicate openly on grades, to call with praise just as often as I called with a problem or emailed with a problem. It's very important when a student does well in your class. And I'm not talking about the A student who always does everything well, but it's important to communicate when a student does well, who's sometimes a problem, sometimes not, or if you have a student who is very often a behavioral problem, but one day he has a good day. It's important to communicate that to the parents, because they get tired of hearing negative all the time about their kids, because they don't keep the good kids home and send you the bad ones. They've done the best they can. They send you what they have, and you need to remember that. All right. So I was amazed at the amount of work my principal did. He worked 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. The good principal I worked under. And even the bad principal, she worked a lot too. They do all of these things. And they are the sacrificial lambs. It is such a pressure cooker to be in that principal seat between the teachers who you try to protect and the administrators who you try to work with and get things for your school. And promote your school and develop your school programs, and you need the buy-in of the administration above you, but you also have to create a teamwork with your teachers below you. So I don't envy the principal. Most principals last 5 years and then they go on to do something else. That seems to be a trend. Most people stay in teaching 5 years and then they go do something else. So it's important to know your principal, and hopefully it's a good working relationship. Any vice principals as well if you work in a big school. It's equally important to know the people in the district office, and whatever you can do to get in front of them in a positive manner, volunteering for service like Paint the Town or any sort of service project that the district is putting a team forward, Race for the Cure, stuff like that. All of those exposures are all hopefully positive, and it creates an impression on your administrators. So after my fourth year of teaching, the middle school principal's job opened up, and I was just finishing my administrative credential, which would qualify me to take that kind of a job. And the superintendent called me at home, and he said, the middle school principal's job is opened and you didn't apply. And I was just wondering why you didn't apply, because we'd like you to apply. And I said, well, I'm 6 weeks pregnant with twins. And he said, oh, we don't want you to apply. And then he went on to tell me he was a twin, which was kind of funny. But I wouldn't have had that conversation with him if he had never known me through the first 4 years that I worked there. So it's important to get out and meet the administrators, and I'm not saying suck up, but you need to be visible. And you need to be a team player and supporting the district as well as teaching in your classroom when you can. And consequently, that superintendent went on to a different school district and was a superintendent there, and he has written me multiple letters of recommendation. So it's always good. Peers, love them and hate them. The politics are amazing. I found it took me I would say a good year to figure out the teachers I could go to with questions about curriculum or questions about classroom management, and the teachers who didn't have anything helpful. So once I sort of picked out some mentors, and I would spend my prep periods, I would go and watch other teachers teach during my prep periods, not all of them, but a couple of times, go out, and I also asked the principal, I'd like to watch someone who's really good at direct instruction. And so he would say, okay, go watch this person. So I would do that. And that's how I navigated the shark-infested waters of teaching. Instruction. It's so hard the first year because you're overwhelmed. You're usually not given much curriculum, or you might get canned curriculum. I don't know. It depends on where you teach. I was my first year of teaching, I did not get a textbook. There weren't any. There was no technology textbook, no journalism. Was there anything? I had 5 preps, 6 periods a day, no textbook. I made everything from scratch. It was insane. And what I learned from that is that sometimes it's better to get something done than to do it well. So I always had lesson plans for all of my different classes. But each year I would focus on improving one specific class so that curriculum is really rock solid. And it's not that I neglected my others, but you can't do everything. And so you have to prioritize and have reasonable expectations in your ability to create curriculum. Wow, that's tough to say. Create curriculum that is engaging for your students.